Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is WireDogSec back with another video for you guys. Today's video, we are in TryHackMe SOC Level 1 Endpoint Security Monitoring Module. This is the Sysmon room. Learn how to utilize Sysmon to monitor and log your endpoints and environments. Now, Sysmon is part of the Windows internals tools, and it's a very useful tool. You'll probably come across it if you're working on the blue team or cyber defense side of things. As you can see here, we're going to cover a variety of different areas here. Overview, installing and preparing Sysmon, cutting out the noise, which means pretty much tuning out anything that's not useful, hunting Metasploit, which is a well-known hacker tool out there, detecting Mimikatz, another well-known hacker tool out there, hunting malware, hunting persistence, detecting evasion techniques, and also get our hands dirty with some practical investigations. Now, before we dive into it, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe with the notification bell if you are new here. Let's go ahead and get to it. Task 1 Introduction. Sysmon, a tool used to monitor and log events on Windows, is commonly used by enterprises as part of their monitoring and logging solutions, part of the Windows Sysinternals package. Sysmon is similar to Windows Event Logs with further details and granular control. This room uses a modified version of Blue and Ice boxes, as well as Sysmon logs from the Holo Live Network Lab. For completing this room, recommend completing Windows Event Log Room, or check out my video on that. It's also recommended to complete the Blue and Ice rooms to get an understanding of vulnerabilities present. However, it's not required. Okay, so we're done with that, and let's see what's going on here. Sysmon overview from the Microsoft Docs. Sysmon is short for System Monitor. It says a Windows system service and device driver that once installed on a system remains resident across system reboots to monitor and log system activity to the Windows event logs. It provides detailed information about process creations, network connections, and changes to file creation time. It's like Windows event logs on steroids, okay? It's like this Super Saiyan form of Windows event logs, okay? So basically, you collect all this information from your endpoints, and then you're going to send that information to the SIM, which is where this is going to be like your centralized location of where all your logs are going to go to, so you can do like correlation and things of that nature to try to find malicious activity in your environment. That's basically what it's saying here. Sysmon gathers detailed and high quality logs as well as event tracing that assist in identifying anomalies in your environment. Sysmon is most commonly used in conjunction with security information event management, which is the SIM system, or other log parsing solutions. Okay, so basically what I just said, you're going to send your logs to the SIM for that as a centralized location. Then you can go in and analyze and correlate events, things of that nature. Okay, events within Sysmon are stored here in application services logs, Microsoft Windows Sysmon operational, Sysmon config overview. Sysmon requires a config file in order to tell the binary how to analyze the events that it is receiving. You can create your own Sysmon config, or you can download a config. Here's a example of a high quality config that works well for identifying anomalies created by Swift on Security. Sysmon config. This is good. A lot of enterprises, a lot of companies use this configuration file here because it does a lot of things that they're looking for. It saves you a lot of legwork. Sysmon includes 29 different types of event IDs, all of which can be used with the config to specify how the events should be handled and analyzed. Below, we will go over a few of the most important event IDs and show examples how they are used within the config files. It says when creating or modifying configuration files, you will notice that a majority of the rules in Sysmon config will exclude events rather than include events, right? So you're basically weeding out all the noise and all the extra junk that you don't want to see in there. You only want to see events that are, limited down so that it'll help you in your investigation. Okay, that's what it's saying here. On the other hand, there are rule sets like Ion, Storm, Sysmon, Config, Fork that takes a more proactive approach with its rule set by using a lot of include rules. You may have to modify the configuration files to find what approach you prefer. Configuration preferences will vary depending on what SOC team. So prepare to be flexible when monitoring. Now, I've only used it to do the include rule set. Oh, actually, no, I take that back. Exclude rule set, not the include one. But as it says here, do what works best for your environment. Event ID 1, process creation. This event will look for any processes that have been created. You can use this tool or use this to look for known suspicious processes or processes with typos that can be considered an anomaly. This event will use the command line and image XML tag. So it'll look something like this. So role group name equals, etc., etc. Command line condition. That's what it's looking for here. Okay. The above code snippet is specifying the event ID to pull from, as well as what condition to look for. In this case, it is excluding the service host.exe process from the logs. Right, so it has that exclude here, and then there's the command line condition that it's excluding. Okay, so that's good to know there. Event ID 3, network connection. Network connection event will look for events that occur remotely. This will include files and sources of suspicious binaries, as well as open ports. This event will use the image and destination port XML tags. Okay, so we can see this is using include, and it has the image condition here in map.exe, which is a well-known tool out there that scans networks. And then it says name alerts, Metasploit, destination 4444, which is, I believe that's like the default port for Metasploit, if I'm not mistaken. The above code snippet includes two ways to identify suspicious network connection activity. The first way is to identify files transmitted over open ports. In this case, we are specifically looking for nmap.exe, which we will then be reflected within the event logs. The second method identifies open ports, specifically 4444, which is commonly used with Metasploit. If the condition is met, an event will be created and ideally trigger an alert for the SOC to further investigate. Event ID 9 or 7, image loaded. This event looks for DLLs loaded by processes, which is useful when hunting for DLL injection and DLL hijacking attacks. It is recommended to exercise caution when using this event ID, as it creates a high system load. This event ID or this event will use image signed, image loaded, and signature XML tags. That's good to know there. The above code snippet will look for any DLLs that have been loaded with the temp directory. If a DLL is loaded within this directory, it can be considered an anomaly and should be further investigated. Event ID 8, create remote thread. It says we'll monitor for processes injecting code into other processes. The create remote thread function is used for legitimate tasks and applications. However, it could be used by malware to hide malicious activity. This event will use the source image, target image, start address, and start function XML tags. And we can see that inside of here. And it says alert cobalt strike, okay, contains, etc., etc. And it explains what it does down here. So the first method will look for the memory, or look at the memory address for a specific ending condition, which could be an indicator of cobalt strike beacon. The second method will look for injected processes that do not have a parent process. This should be considered an anomaly and require further investigation. So event ID 11 is file created. It says we'll log events when files are created or overwritten the endpoint. This could be used to identify file names and signatures of files that are written to disk. This event uses target file XML tags. Using include, and you can see alert, ransomware, condition contains, help to save files. The code snippet is an example of a ransomware event monitor. This is one example of a variety of different ways to utilize event ID 11. Okay, and then we have event ID 12, 13, and 14 registry event. It says looks for changes or modifications to the registry. Malicious activity from the registry can include persistence and credential abuse. This event uses target object XML tags, and we see include, and then we'll have the name here T1484. This looks like a MITRE attack reference there. And then you can see that this contains Windows system scripts. Okay, the above code snippet will look for registry objects and Windows system uh, scripts directory, as this is a common directory for adversaries to place scripts to establish persistence. Event ID 15, file create stream hash. Look for any files created in alternate data stream. This is a common technique used by adversaries to hide malware. This event uses target file name XML tags. So another include and with then .hta as the target file name in there. For the condition, says code snippet will look for files with the .hta extension that have been placed within an alternate data stream. Okay, event ID 22, which is DNS events. This event will log all DNS queries and events for analysis. The most common way to deal with these events is to exclude all trusted domains that you know will be very common. Noise in your environment. Once you get rid of the noise, you can look for the DNS anomalies. This event uses query name XML tags. So we have an exclude here because you're excluding the trusted domains, right? You don't want that to be in these logs here. Getting rid of that noise. And then .microsoft.com is a commonly used domain out there, right? That's that's going to be trusted here as they're putting in here. So they're going to exclude Microsoft.com. Says we'll get exclude any DNS events with the .microsoft.com query. This will get rid of noise that you see in your environment. There are a variety of ways and tags that you can use or customize your configuration files. We will be using the Ion Storm and Swift on security config files for the rest of this room. However, feel free to use your own configuration files. Interesting to know. Task number 3, installing and preparing Sysmon. And okay, so we're going to talk about installing it first. Installing straightforward, only requires downloading the binary from Microsoft website. You can also download all the sysinternal tools within PowerShell. And let's see here. It is also recommended to use a Sysmon config file along with Sysmon, which we already know that. And once again, it references this GitHub repo that has Swift on security. If you want to use that configuration file, you can find Sysmon binary from Microsoft internals website. You can also use PowerShell. So there's a variety of ways to download this. And here's one example of using PowerShell to download it. Says to fully utilize Sysmon, you will need to download a Sysmon config file, which we already know about that. And they have two here that we're going to be looking at. Swift on security, once again, then this Ion security file. Starting Sysmon, to start Sysmon, you will want to open a PowerShell or command prompt as administrator, and then run the below command. It will execute Sysmon binary and accept the end user license agreement and use the Swift on security configuration file. I used sysmon.exe, accept EULA, and then -i configurations, and then Swift XML. So they just have a little snippet of what that looks like here. Okay, so let's see here. That's good to know there. And now that Sysmon is started with the configuration file we want to use, we can look at the event viewer to monitor events. The event log is under the applications and services logs. Microsoft Windows Sysmon operational. Okay, so I'm assuming they want us to try this out. So let me see. Okay, I am on the VM. As you can see here, I ran Sysmon, set the EULA, and then looking at this swift.xml configuration file here. It's already running, configuration file validated, so that's good. And then also in the event logs, we're in the operational area here, and we can see that things are being logged in here. Okay, so we know it's running and working as intended. So let's continue on here. It says at any time you can change the configuration file by uninstalling or updating the current configuration file and replacing it with a new configuration file. For more information, look through the Sysmon help menu. If installed correctly, event log should look something like this, which it does. For this room, we have already created an environment with Sysmon and configuration files for you. Deploy and use this machine for the remainder of the room. And here's the information for the machine, which we're already in. Okay, and let's see here. Task number 4, cutting out the noise. So we're going to do some filtering, it sounds like. Malicious activity overview. Since most of the normal activity or noise seen on the network is excluded or filtered out with Sysmon, we're able to focus on meaningful events. This allows us to quickly identify and investigate suspicious activity. When actively monitoring a network, you want to use multiple detection and techniques simultaneously in an effort to identify threats. For this room, we will only be looking at what suspicious logs will look like with both Sysmon configs and how to optimize your hunt using only Sysmon. We will be looking at how to detect ransomware persistence, Mimikatz, Metasploit, and C2 beacons. Obviously, this is only showcasing a small handful of events that could be triggered in an environment. This methodology will largely be the same for other threats. It really comes down to using an ample and efficient configuration file, as it can do a lot more of the heavy lifting for you. You can either download the event logs used for this task, or you can open them from the practice directory on the provided machine and use the directory on the machine. So let's see where it is here. And I'm assuming it's going to be in the scenario thing here. There we go. Practice investigations. Okay, awesome. All right, so now we know where it's at. Swing back over here. Sysmon best practices. Sysmon offers a fairly open and configurable platform for you to use. Generally speaking, there are a few best practices that you could implement to ensure you're operating efficiently and not missing any potential threats. A few common best practices are outlined and explained below. So include when creating rules for your Sysmon configuration file, it is typically best to prioritize excluding events rather than including events. This prevents you from accidentally missing crucial events and only seeing the events that matter the most. Command interface gives you further control. As is common with most applications, the CLI gives you the most control in filtering, allowing for further granular control. You can either use get when event or webutil.exe to access and filter logs. As you incorporate Sysmon into your SIM or other detection solutions, these tools will become less used and needed. You can filter out things in your SIM, right? So there you go there. Know your environment for implementation. Knowing your environment is important when implementing any platform or tool. You should have a firm understanding of the network or environment you're working with within to fully understand what is normal and what is suspicious in order to effectively craft rules. Now, ideally, in the actual real world, you may need to have some baseline, but in many cases, there may not be a baseline for that particular environment, but you should be working off a baseline or at least knowing some aspect of what's normal in that particular environment and what's abnormal so that you can help tune out the noise and extra junk you don't want to see. Filtering events with Event Viewer. Event Viewer might not be the best for filtering events out of the box, offers limited control over logs. The main filter you'll be using, of course, is going to be the event ID and keywords. You can also choose to filter by writing XML, but this is a tedious process that doesn't scale well. To open the filter, select Filter Current Log from the Access menu, which we should know how to do this because we looked at that room, right? So we have over here in this actions, okay, if we want to filter things. So filter current log, and let's see here. If you have successfully opened the filter menu, it should look like this, which it does. From this menu, we can add any filters and categories we want. Filtering events with PowerShell. To view and filter events with PowerShell, we'll be using the get when event along with XPath queries. We can use any XPath queries that can be found in XML view of events. We will be using webutil.exe to view events once filtered. The command line is typically used over the event viewer GUI as is allows for further granular control and filtering, whereas the GUI does not. For information about get when event and get what util, check out the Windows event log room. Check out my video on it. For this room, we'll only be going over a few basic filters as the Windows event log room already extensively covers this topic. Filter by event. So if you want to do that, you can do it like this. So star system event ID equals whatever event ID XML tag, then you have event ID or event data. We can put these filters together with various attributes and data to get the most control out of our logs. Look below for an example of the get when event to look for network containing or network connections coming from port 4444. So get when event, and then you have the path, and you have the filter here using XPath, and then you have XML attribute over here that you're going to be looking for. And here's the whole thing built out here. Okay, good to know there. And I'm going to see if I can just copy and paste this over and see if it works. So let's go ahead and grab this real quick. And this is what I need here. So let's bring up PowerShell again. Okay, there we go. Awesome. Okay, so already done that. How many event ID 3 events are in the scenarios practice of filtering event ID or filtering.evtx? So let's take a look at that real quick. So let's clear all this junk out here. And let's see here. So we need to take a look at event ID 3 events. So let's go ahead and get rid of all this since we don't need it. And then we're going to edit that first part there. So let's go back here. And then we need to use that filtering one. And I forgot to put the last thing here. Okay, so there's a bunch that come back in here. And I remember that another video we had to pipe that into. All right, I tried to do this with measure object, but that will take too long. So what you can do is load up filtering inside of event viewer. You go over to filter logs and then plug in 3, hit OK, and then it should filter all these logs out except for 3, event ID 3, and you can see number of events 73,591. And then the next one asked for the time here in UTC, so you have to navigate to the first log or earliest log file in there. and or early event in there, and then also go to the details tab. So that's exactly what I did. Here's the first one here, hit details, and then you can see UTC time right there, and then you're gonna grab this time out of here. Okay. All right. Now, task number 5, hunting Metasploit. So let's take a look here. As I stated earlier, Metasploit is basically a well-known hacking tool out there. It does a variety of different things. You can go ahead and Google the full extent of its capabilities and whatnot. It says to begin the hunt, we will look for network connections that originate from suspicious ports such as 4444 and 5555. By default, Metasploit uses 4444. If there is a connection to any IP, known or unknown, it should be investigated. To start investigation, you can look at packet captures from the date of the log to begin looking for further information about the adversary. We can also look for suspicious processes created. This method of hunting can be applied to other various RATs and C2 beacons, which is remote access Trojans, remote access tools, whatever you want to call it there. For more information about the technique and tools, check out MITRE ATT&CK software. For more information about how malware and payloads interact with the network, check out the malware common port spreadsheet. So check that out if you're interested. Looks like it has a lot of good information there. This will be covered in further depth in the hunting malware task. You can download the event logs used in this room from this task, or you can open them in the practice folder on the provided machine. So hunting network connections. We will first be looking at a modified ION security configuration to detect the creation of new network connections. The code snippet below will use event ID 3 along with the destination port to identify active connections, specifically connections on port 444 and 5555. So include, and here's one connection here, and here's the second one there. And this is open the practice hunting Metasploit EBTX in event viewer to view a basic Metasploit payload being dropped onto the machine. All right, so let's just do that, follow along here, and let's close out of this here. And we need to take a look at hunting Metasploit. So let's open this up. So once this is loaded, I guess we can take a look here and see if we can find anything inside of here. Let's flip back over real quick. So they're looking for shell.exe, looks like. So let's see if we can just try to find that. Let's try find here. Shell.exe. And something came up here. So, okay, it's looking at PowerShell. There we go. So this looks suspicious here to me. All right, so it looks like we're in the right track there. And they flipped over to the details tab, right, to get some more information there. Yeah, so there you go, definitely suspicious. Okay, that says once we identify the event, it gave us some important information. We can further investigate a further investigation like process ID and image, hunting for open ports with PowerShell. To who hunt for open ports with PowerShell, we'll be using PowerShell module get when event along with XPath queries. We can use the same XPath queries that we use in the rule to filter out events, network connect, and destination port. This command line is typically used over the event viewer GUI because it can allow for further granular control, which you already know about that. For more information about using XPath command line for event viewing, check out Windows Event Log Room. Okay, so let's just go ahead and copy this over. So we should get a similar result as this little snippet here. Flip back over to our terminal. Okay, and let me get out of this, clear the screen, and paste this over. All right, so let's see here. There we go. Says we can break this command down by its filters to see exactly what it's doing. It's first filtering on event ID 3, which we already know that. And then filtering by data name, in this case, destination port. as well as the specific port we want to filter, which is right there. And we can adjust this syntax along with our event logs to get exactly what we want in return. So that's good to know there. So read the above and practice hunting Metasploit with the file. So spend some time doing that, playing around with it. We're going to continue on to the next task here, detecting Mimikatz. All right, task number 6, detecting Mimikatz. Mimikatz is a well-known and commonly used hacking tool to dump creds from the machine, basically. So it's going to be dump creds from memory, along with other Windows post-exploitation activity. You can do some Googling, ask ChatGPT for information regarding Mimikatz. Anyway, so basically it explains that it can be often picked up by antivirus, but sometimes it can be bypassed or bypass antivirus. And still a threat, actually can obfuscate or use droppers, etc., etc. So for this hunt, we will be using a custom configuration file to minimize network noise and focus on the hunt. And it says for more information about this technique, in the software, check out MITRE, ATT&CK T1055, and S0002. You can download event logs using this room. You can use the practice folder, which we're going to do the practice folder logs, detecting file creation. The first method of hunting for Mimikatz is just looking for files created with the name Mimikatz. This is a simple technique, but can allow you to find anything that might have bypassed AV. Most of the time when dealing with advanced threat, you will need more advanced threat hunting techniques, searching for LSAS behavior, but this technique can still be useful. Any threat actor that's worth anything is going to rename the file from Mimikatz to something else, right? It's not going to be blatantly obvious most of the time. This is a very simple way of detecting Mimikatz activity that has bypassed antivirus or other detection measures, but most of the time it is preferred to use other techniques like hunting for LSAS specific behavior. Below is a snippet of a config to aid in the hunt of Mimikatz. So include and then target file name condition contains Mimikatz. So what basically what just said up here, looking for files named Mimikatz. Um, let's see, as this method is not to be commonly used for hunting for anomalies, we will not be looking at any events for this specific technique, hunting abnormal LSAS behavior. We can use the process access event ID to hunt for abnormal LSAS behavior. This event, along with LSAS, would show potential LSAS abuse, which usually connects back to Mimikatz, some other kind of credential dumping tool. Look below for more details on hunting with these techniques. Right. So, majority of cases I've seen in anything credential dumping of LSAS, right, it has been malicious. So just take that into consideration. If LSAS is accessed by a process other than svchost.exe, it should be considered suspicious behavior and should be investigated further. To aid in looking for suspicious events, you can use a filter to only look for processes besides svchost.exe. Sysmon will provide us further details to help lead the investigation, such as the file path the process originated from. To aid in detections, we will be using a custom configuration file. Below is a snippet of the configuration that will aid in the hunt. So they're including, and then they're looking for lsas.exe, and it says open scenarios practice hunting lsas.exe and event viewer to view an attack using an obfuscated version of Mimikatz to dump credentials from memory. And so let's open that up and just look for Mimikatz and see what comes back. We should get similar output like this. So let's flip over to our machine here and let's go ahead and just exit out of this here, minimize that. Hunting Mimikatz, let's bring this up. Okay, so it's loading up and let's just do our find here, then type in Mimikatz. So there we go. Okay, let's go to details. Okay, so there's some information there. Let's go back to find next. Okay, let's take a look here. Here's one with more information here. It mentions lsas.exe, and then there's a lot more other items here listed. Okay, so this looks like the one that they have in that screenshot there. We see the event that has Mimikatz process access, but we also see a lot of svchost.exe events. We can alter our config to exclude events with the source image event coming from servicehost.exe. Look below for a modified configuration rule to cut down on the noise that is present in the event logs. Okay, so that's good to know. And this is what it looks like here. Excludes or excluding svc host.exe, but they're also including lss.exe. Just by modifying the configuration file to include this exception, we have cut down our events significantly and can focus on only the anomalies. This technique can be used throughout Sysmon and events to cut down on noise in logs. Very good information there. Detecting LSAS behavior in with PowerShell. So once again, we're going to try to detect abnormal activity in this particular instance, LSAS. So we're going to use get when event, xpath again, and then we're going to use target image. Okay, so we have an example built out here, right? And then I have the full one built out here. So I'm going to copy and paste this over, and hopefully it works. Okay, so we got that. Copy that. Let's go open up our terminal here. PowerShell. Paste. There we go. Hit enter. And it looks like ID 10 is listed there. Okay. So it looks like we have similar output as they have here. So that's good to know. Read the above and practice detecting Mimikatz with the provided EBTX. So go ahead and spend some time doing that. I mean, hopefully you followed along and did this. Task number 7, hunting malware. Malware has many forms and variation with different end goals. The two types of malware that we will focus on are rats and backdoors. Rats or remote access Trojans are used similar to any other payload to gain remote access to a machine. Rats typically come with other antivirus and detection evasion techniques that make them different than other payloads like MSF Venom, which is well known as well. So that works with Metasploit and such, right? A rat typically also uses client-server model and comes with an interface for easy user administration. Example of rats are XEEXE and Quasar. To help detect and hunt malware, we will need to first identify the malware that we want to hunt or detect and identify ways that we can modify configuration files. This is known as hypothesis-based hunting. There are, of course, a plethora of other ways to detect and log malware. However, we will only be covering the basic way of detecting open back connect ports. Right, so back to this client server model, the client would be like the implant onto the machine on the endpoint, and that's going to connect back to the server where the attacker will have control of the server and take a look at the GUI interface or command line interface to take a look at what implants have been checking in, what agents have been checking in, whatever they are called in that particular C2 framework or the RAT. For more information about the technique and examples of malware, check out MITRE ATT&CK software. You can download event logs in this room. Of course, we're going to use the practice folder, hunting rats at C2 servers. So let's take a look here. First technique we will use for malware is a similar process to hunting Metasploit. We can look through and create a custom or a config file to hunt and detect suspicious ports open on endpoint. By using known suspicious ports to include in our logs, we can add to our hunting methodology in which we can use logs to identify adversaries on our network, then use packet captures or other detection strategies to continue the investigation. The code snippet below is from the Ion Storm configuration file, which will alert when specific ports like 1034 and 1604, as well as exclude common network connections like OneDrive. By excluding events, we still see everything that we want without missing anything and cut down on noise. When using configuration files in a production environment, we must be careful and understand exactly what is happening within the configuration file. An example of this is the Ion Storm configuration file that excludes port 53 as an event, and we should know what port 53 is usually runs, right? Attackers and adversaries have begun to use port 53 as part of their malware payloads, which could go undetected if you blindly use this configuration file as is. That's right. They can use they can exfiltrate some things on this port, using like DNS tunneling and things of that nature. For more information about ports in that this configuration file alerts on, check out the spreadsheet. So check that out for sure. And here's a little snippet of what they're talking about here. So include 1034 and 1604, and then exclude OneDrive.exe so they can filter out that noise from OneDrive, but they still have this to detect on. So a little bit of detection engineering that's going on here, right? So we're looking at practice and then hunting rats EVTX an event viewer. Take a look at the rat that's been dropped. So we're going to look for this big bad rat.exe, and let's flip back over here. Let's close out of this and then open up that file, hunting rats. Once again, once it's loaded, we're going to go to find, and I forgot what it was called, big bad rat.exe. Okay, so one came up already, and let's get out of this. Go to details here. Okay, let's see if there's any more. Destination port 8080. There's another one here. Okay, 8080. And let's flip back over here. Right, so we have similar output, what they see there. In the above example, we're detecting a custom rat that operates on port 8080. This is a perfect example of why you want to be careful when excluding events in order to not miss potential malicious activity. Hunting for common back connect ports with PowerShell. So once again, we're going to be using this get when event and then XPath queries, and then we're going to be filtering on network connect, event ID, and the destination port attribute. So here's a sample of what they are using here. So event ID 3 once again, and then inside there destination port, and then they're looking for that specific port. And here's what it looks like in real time, or in a little snippet here. So we have port 8080. That's what we're going to be looking for. So I'm just going to copy and paste this over. So I think you guys are starting to realize that there's a pattern or a process here that they're using. So you can see there's quite a bit in here. Okay, good to know there. Okay, so practice hunting rats and C2 servers with back connect ports, which we just did. Task number 8, hunting persistence. Persistence is used by attackers to maintain access to a machine once it's compromised. There's a multitude of ways that an attacker can gain persistence on a machine. Says focusing on registry modification as well as startup scripts. So you can hunt persistence with Sysmon by looking for file creation events, as well as registry modification events. So it's on security configuration file does a good job for specifically targeting persistence and techniques used. You can also filter it by the rule names in order to get past the network noise and focus on anomalies within the event logs. Okay, so once again, you can look at the download. You can download this using this blue button over here, or to have them in the practice folder. Hunting startup persistence. What's on security detections are looking at files placed in the startup and start menu directories. Below is a snippet of the config that will aid in event tracing for this technique. For more information, check out this MITRE T1547 there. All right, guys, so once again, here's include, and there's the MITRE reference there, and there's another one there. And then you can see here condition contains, and there's the first one here, that's start menu, and then startup for the other one. And then they already know we're looking at file creates, okay? And it says that we can open up this practice T1023 in event viewer, and then we're going to be finding something like this here. Okay, so let's go ahead and try that. Let's flip back over, and we're going to minimize this, exit out of this. Okay, so let's bring this up. And I believe they're looking for persist.exe for this notepad. Okay, nice. Okay, it's up and running, so let's go ahead and use our find. Okay, so let's find. So here's the first one. Let's take a look here. Let's get out of this. This might be what we're looking for. Okay, this looks similar to what we saw here. Great. When looking at an event, we can see that persist.exe was placed in a startup folder. The reactors will almost never make it this obvious, but any changes to the start menu should be investigated. You can adjust the configuration file to be more granular and create alerts past just the file create tag. We can also filter by the role name T1023. So that's good to know there. They put 11 inside of here, and there's 2. Okay, so I guess we can try it looking at this real quick and see. So filter on this. event ID 11, which we also saw over here. Okay, there we go. We got 2 in there. Okay, next one. It says that once you have identified that a suspicious binary or application has been placed in a startup location, you can begin an investigation on that directory. Hunting registry key persistence. Once again, Swift on security, registry modification, and the script inside current version Windows run and other registry locations. For more information, check out MITRE ATT&CK. Accidentally clicked on it, but MITRE ATT&CK T1112. So since if we already clicked on it, we can take a look once it's loaded up. Modify registry. A lot of information here in MITRE ATT&CK. So if you're not familiar with MITRE ATT&CK, go ahead and spend some time in here looking around because it's very well known in the cybersecurity space. Anyway, so back to what we're talking about here. So let's take a look at this snippet here. So once again, it's an include, and they're looking at this MITRE ATT&CK reference here, T1060, T1484, T1060 again. You see run key contains, and then current run contains group policy scripts, contains current version Windows run registry event. So next thing we're going to open up here is this practice, and then T1060, and says view an attack where the registry was modified to gain persistence. So we're going to look at malicious.exe. So let's go ahead and do that here. Flip back over here, and let's get out of this. So once that's loading up, we're going to look for that malicious.exe. Okay, so we're going to use our old trusty find here. Okay, let's see. Let's take a look at this one. Okay, this looks like what we're looking for here. Current version, run, persistence. Okay, nice. And that's exactly what they see here. Just like the start technique, we can filter by the rule name T1060 to make finding the anomaly easier. If we wanted to investigate this anomaly, we would need to look at the registry as well as the file location itself. Below is the registry area where the malicious registry key was placed. So you can take a look in the registry, incident computer, H key, local machine, software, Microsoft Windows, current version, and run. Okay, we can see that in here, persistence, and then we see the malicious.exe running in there. If the machine, if somehow the attacker loses connection to the machine, like it's rebooted or something like that, then it can come back and reconnect back to the attacker-controlled C2 server. So we're done with this one. We practiced hunting persistent techniques, so we'll continue to task number 9 here. Detecting evasion techniques. So let's take a look at what they're talking about here. Evasion techniques overview. There are a number of evasion techniques used by malware authors to evade both antivirus and detections. Some examples of evasion techniques are alternate data streams, injections, masquerading, packing/compression, recompiling, obfuscation, anti-reversing techniques. In this task, we will be focusing on alternate data streams and injections. Alternate data streams are used by malware to hide its files from normal inspection by saving the file in a different stream apart from $data. Sysmon comes with an event ID to detect newly created and accessed streams, allowing us to quickly detect and hunt malware that uses ADS. Injection techniques come in many different types: thread hijacking, PE injection, DLL injection, and more. In this room, we will be focusing on DLL injection and backdooring DLLs. This is done by taking an already used DLL that is used by an application and overriding or including your malicious code within DLL. And then the techniques in regards to MITRE ATT&CK are T1564 and T1055. Once again, you can download the event logs or you can use the practice folder on the machine. Hunting alternate data streams. The first technique we're taking a look at using event ID 15. This event ID 15 will hash and log any NTFS streams that are included within the Sysmon configuration file. This will allow us to hunt for malware that evades detections using ADS. To aid in hunting ADS, we will be using the Swift on security Sysmon configuration file. The code snippet below will hunt for files in the temp and downloads folder, as well as .hta and .bat extension. So we'll take a look at it include. You can see target file name contains download. You have temp z 7z, which is 7-zip, .hta for the another one, and then you have .bat there for the other extension. Okay, and it says file creates stream hash, right? Okay, so we're going to look at the scenarios to practice hunting ads.evtx in Event Viewer to view hidden files using alternate data stream. So we're going to go and search for, looks like, I'm assuming we can search on this not malicious.exe. So let's do that with find. And let's see here. Hunting ADS. So let's go ahead and bring this up. Okay, so once it finishes loading all these events, let's go to our find here. And not underscore malicious. So let's try searching on that. Okay, it's running. It didn't find anything. Let's try star. Nothing. Okay. Well, let's take a look again. Okay, well, let's just type the whole thing out, I guess. Okay, and I forgot what it was. Malicious one. Okay, let's try this. Really? Okay. Well, let's try downloads, I guess. I'm not sure. Maybe I've had a misspelling or something. All right. So one came up here. Let's try next. Nothing else. That's the only one in there. Um, okay. Well, there's nothing particular of interest there. So I guess you have to flip through here and try to find something that looks crazy or looks suspicious in there. And let's just see. Let's see here. Contents, this is ADS. Let's try finding on that. All right, for some reason I wasn't able to find it. I'm not sure if we're supposed to find it or not. But I mean, it says to look at event ID 15. So I mean, if we can try to looking at event ID 15. Let's see. Plug that in. Yeah, see, there's nothing in there. So let's just clear this out and then we'll just continue on here. And here's another example of listing data streams. So there are then /r to list out that. And you can see not malicious.txt and the other one there. As you can see, the event will show us the location of the file as well as the contents of the file. This will be useful in investigation if necessary. Detecting remote threads. Adversaries also commonly use remote threads to evade detections in combination with other techniques. Remote threads are created using the Windows API, create remote thread, and can be accessed using open thread and resume thread. This is used in multiple evasion techniques, including DLL injection, thread hijacking, and process hauling. We will be using the Sysmon event ID 8 from the Swift on security configuration file. The code snippet below from the rule will exclude common remote threads without including any specific attributes. This allows for a more open and precise rule. So here we go. Exclude SVC host, and then this Chrome.exe. They want us to open up this detecting remote threads.evtx file. Event viewer to observe a process hauling attack that abuses notepad.exe. So we're going to open that up and then search for notepad.exe. So let's do that here. Okay, so let's do our find. Okay, so let's check out this one here. Okay, this might be what we're looking for. Let's flip back over here. And there's just different. Let's try another one. Well, let's see if we can just filter out on the event ID they had specified. So it says 8. Let's do that. Let's just filter current log on 8. I can see a couple 8s in there already. All right, so let's do this. And there's notepad.exe. There we go. Okay. All right. This looks like something similar to what they're looking at here, I guess. Let's see if there are any other ones in there. A lot. Okay. There's 3788. All right, it says, as you can see, the above image PowerShell.exe is creating a remote thread and accessing notepad.exe. This is obviously a POC and could, in theory, execute any other kind of executable or DLL. This technique, this specific technique used is an example called reflective PE injection. So that's good to know there. Detecting evasion techniques with PowerShell. Once again, we're going to use PowerShell and then get event, XPath, and then the event ID to search on. Here's a sample of what that looks like here. And here's the real thing that we can use. So let's go ahead and grab this. There we go. All right. So we already done practice detecting evasion techniques. So task number 10 here, we're going to get some practical application stuff going on. Event files used within this task have been sourced from the EVTX attack samples and Sysmon references GitHub repositories. You can download the event logs used in this room from the task, or you can open them in the investigation folder on the provided machine. So once again, we have investigations, and we have questions at the bottom. So go ahead and try to answer these yourself, and then come into the video and we'll go through it together. All right, let's take a look here. Investigation 1, Bill, that's the wrong USB. In this investigation, your team has received reports that a malicious file was dropped onto a host by a malicious USB. They have pulled the logs suspected and have tasked you with running the investigation on it. So they're going to be located here in this investigation 1 EVTX file. So I already have it pulled up here. All right, we already know we're looking for a USB, right? And I went ahead and sorted this, by the way. So we're looking for USB. Let's just type in USB and see if anything comes up, possibly. Okay, something comes up in here, and it looks kind of strange here. Target object here, HKLM, software, Microsoft, etc., etc. This appears to be what we're looking for, friendly name. Okay, so we can go ahead and grab that out of here, copy it, and then we'll plug it in for that first answer here. What is the full registry key of the USB device calling svc host.exe investigation 1? Okay, so that'll be what we're looking for here. And you can scroll down here and you can see the next item as well. It's mentioned here. And you can see image is svc.exe. So this is exactly what we're looking for. All right, so go ahead and grab that. And then plug it in. There's your answer there. Next one is what is the device name when being called by raw access read in investigation 1? So if we go back here and if we go down a little bit here, we can see raw access read. We can see a couple items here, event ID 9. So let's check out this first one here. And svchost.exe is mentioned, and the device is going to be this here. This device hard disk volume 3 appears to be our answer there. And what is the first XE the process executes in an investigation 1? Again, we're going to be looking for an XE file, and you can see things over here, process create, so it's probably going to be in here somewhere, right? And we can see run dot run dll32.exe is mentioned here. Okay, so that's going to be our answer there. And next one is investigation 2. What's the full path of the payload investigation 2? So let's take a look here. This isn't an HTML file. Another suspicious file has appeared in our logs and has managed to execute code masking itself as HTML file. Evading antivirus detections, open the logs and investigate the suspicious file. So it's going to be in investigation 2. So I'm going to scroll back down here. We need to find the full payload in this particular file here. So let's go ahead and do that. Open up 2. So let's see how many events are in here. Okay, only 3. Take a look at details here. And we're going to see some strange things going on here. Okay, mshta.exe is mentioned there. All right, temporary internet files, update.hta, update.html. Okay, so this appears to be what we're looking for here. This this HTA file, and we need to grab the entire thing. So make sure to pull the entire thing out of there. We'll just see this here. So I'm just going to grab it here, and we already know from earlier that they can use those alternate data streams and such to pull up that information. So make sure you grab that out of there. And so I'm just deleting this stuff at the top here. What is the full path of the file? The payload mask itself as investigation 2. We already saw that it was going to be the update.html file. So if we go back here, we can take a look and we can see parent command line. This is mentioned here. Downloads update.html file. Okay, so that's our answer for that one. What signed binary executed the payload in investigation 2? Well, we saw that as well. We saw this lmshta.exe. If we scroll back up here, it's mentioned there. So we can see that it's firing off the malicious file there. Okay. The next one is, what is the IP of the adversary investigation 2? So let's go ahead and try to find that here. And let's see if it appears. So it might be in this one. It ranges it in opposite order here. So let's see. There we go, destination IP. This 10.0.2.18, and then the destination port 4443. So that should be our answer there for both of these. Next one, we're going to take a look at the third investigation. So let's see what they're talking about here. Where's the bouncer when you need him? Your team has identified or informed you that an adversary has managed to set up persistence on the endpoints as they continue to move throughout your network. Find how the adversary managed to gain persistence using the logs provided. So the logs are located here, investigation 3.1 and 3.2. So let's take a look at our questions down below. What is the IP address of the suspected adversary investigation 3.1? All right, so let's go ahead and open up this and take a look. Hopefully there's not that many events in here. Okay, only 9. So let's go ahead and arrange this real quick. Okay. Take a look at details here. And right off the bat, we can see this IP address in there, Empire C2. And it's going to this IP here, this dot 253. So that appears to be what we're looking for there for the adversary IP. And then we saw that it's connecting to that Empire C2 server. So there's your answer for that one. So flip back over here, we can see that information in here. Destination host. Okay. And so that's those 2 questions. Next one is, what's the host name of the affected endpoint in 3.1? So let's go ahead and try to find that here. And let's see. Okay, so basically we're going to sift through these logs and see if we can find that endpoint. We see some other information here, sethc.exe. We see some, looks like PowerShell stuff that it's doing here. We're still looking through here, and we can already see the source host name is going to be that infected machine here, this desktop dash 0 whatever. So that's what we're looking for here. And let's see if what's in his other logs too. Probably, yeah. There's the user queue, but there's also the name there for the machine, and then source host name there. So yeah, it's in multiple different logs that we can find that answer there. Where's the registry, or where in the registry was the payload stored in investigation 3.1? So we're looking for registry information here. So we can see here registry object added, and we can see here going to connections and then set value here. And this is what we're looking for. This target object going into this debug. So we'll plug that in as our answer there. HKLM software Microsoft network debug. Next one is what PowerShell launch code was used to launch the payload in investigation 3.1. Well, we saw that earlier, so let's go ahead and see if we can find that again. Okay, so there it is right here. This is exactly what we need. Okay, so there's that one. And the next one is what is the IP of the adversary in 3.2? And we already saw that information. I think we already answered this earlier, but if we want to take a look again, we can go ahead and just look at one of these that had it in there as the destination IP here. Okay, actually, let's see here. It's weird. It says it's this here for the destination, so I'm wondering if there's another one inside of here. I'm actually looking at the wrong file, aren't I? Yes, I am. 3.2 is what we need to look at. So let me get out of this. 3.2. Okay, so let's try this again. Since we already know we're looking for a destination IP, so we can go ahead and try to find that. So let's just try find. Let's try destination. Okay, so let's see. All right, so this one looks pretty funky here. Network connection detected. And then we can see destination IP is this here. And then host name is going to this AOL domain here. All right, so that looks like what we're looking for here. But obviously, as you're shifting through these logs, let me arrange this again. Okay, let's go here. Yeah, so we're starting from the earliest to the latest. But even in this first one there, we can see PowerShell is mentioned. There's the user, and then it's making an outbound connection from the affected host here on the source port, and it's going over port 80, and it's going to this destination IP. You can see some other items here mentioned, pipes and stuff getting created. It looks like, yeah, pipe created. Okay, so it's doing some stuff in CMD, some more PowerShell stuff, service task. That's interesting. Setting up a service task here. Okay, so let's flip back over here. It's probably one of these questions, I'm sure. Yes, what is full command used to create a scheduled task? Well, we just saw that here under the command line. So we're going to need to grab that and plug it in as our answer. Okay. Obviously, in the real world, you're gonna have a ton of logs to probably sift through. It's not gonna be this obvious, but there's some items in specific process and such you can, you know, give you some kind of inkling of where to look. One that says what process was accessed by scheduled task at XE would be considered suspicious behavior. So let's go ahead and take a look here, and let's see, process create, and we can take a look at this command line stuff here. And it looks like it's encoded with base 64. Yeah. So let's see. Let's go down one up here. All right. You can see LFAS mentioned right here for source image name. And it's doing a lot of other things as well, as we saw earlier in this room. This looks very familiar to one of those. So it's mentioned LSAS again. Probably possibly doing maybe some credential dumping there. Okay. But yeah, I like how it shows the actual PowerShell information and the syntax. All right. So yeah, definitely strange here. And what is the IP of the adversary in investigation 4? So let's flip over to that. And we're going to be looking for a destination IP. So SVC host, protocol UDP. Okay. This one looks kind of odd there. Let's see here. Some more SVC host stuff mentioned here. Let's go ahead and just sort this real quick. All right. And I'm going to see if I can move this up a little bit. Okay. All right, so we have to find that the IP of the adversary in here. So as you're looking through here, you got to see that, okay, PowerShell is mentioned again here, and it's using this Empire C2 again, port 80. So this appears what we're looking for right there, this dot 253. It's going to be an answer for that one. And was that mentioned twice? Yeah, okay. What is the port? Well, we saw that port number, port 80 right there. And then where it's going to be using Empire, as we can see there, Empire C2. So that's pretty much how you investigate here. Now, obviously, it's not going to be blatantly, obvious like that when you're looking at things in the real world, but you can see that you're looking for suspicious processes running or processes doing, odd behavior, making, connections outbound to weird host names, weird IP addresses, stuff like that. So you're gonna have to do like some digging, some OSINT on like these IPs, maybe even these domains that are mentioned for like the destination host, and then of course if it flags it for any type of like malicious tools out there like Metasploit, Cobalt Strike, Empire C2, what's another popular one? There's a bunch of them out there that are well known in the space. But yeah, this was actually pretty neat, investigating all these logs and determining the suspicious activity as well as what the adversary did on the machine, and then where it went to as well. So we had some other IOCs that we could plug into other tools possibly to get things blocked. Not like IPs, you can plug those into like your firewall or something like that to block it, block or look at specific ports, plug that into your SIM to see if anything else has been communicating over these suspicious ports or even these IPs, host names, what have you. But anyway, that wraps up this video. I'll have additional resources, of course, inside of the description box of this video. Okay. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video, found it valuable. Be sure to hit that like button, comment below on what you learned. What was the best part of the video? Have you done this in the real world? Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell if you're new here. Thank you for taking the time to watch our video. Have a nice day, and I will see you in the next one.